The agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Motion to approve. Second. A motion by Y and a second by Bueller. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 2 is public input. Is there anyone here that would like to say something? Seeing no one, we'll move on. Item 3 is approval of the agenda. Motion by Vilhauer and a second by Lallam. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 4 is request authorization to sign an agreement with Veolia LLC for the 2020 Household Hazardous Waste event. Yep.
Motion to
I
approve.
have a motion by Lallam and a second by Hoyer. And I'll ask Heath to give an introduction. I see Mike's here.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is in relation to our annual Household Hazardous Waste event that occurs every spring, and Mike Berger from the Wastewater Solid Waste Division of Public Works is here to talk in more detail about it with us. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks. Yes, the city has contracted with Veolia for 18 household hazardous waste events over the past 17 years. Under this agreement, Veolia will mobilize a field crew and equipment to Watertown. And at this event, then they will classify, segregate, and package household hazardous waste materials according to the CLAZARD-HAS in accordance with DOT, EPA, and state regulations. They will use DOT-approved drums to transport this waste, and they will complete all the necessary drum labeling, manifests, and paperwork that's required by law, and then they will transport these waste to their transfer site and ultimately recycle or dispose of these waste at their facilities. The event will be from 8 a.m. until noon on Saturday, April 25th. We pretty much have, for all but 1 year, scheduled it for the last Saturday in April, so people kind of have learned when it's coming and can remember when it's going to happen. So it's at the wastewater facility, where it's been for the last 17 years. And then at this event, the residential public will drive through a safe, convenient one-way route through the wastewater facility and remain in their vehicles while the city staff and Veolia staff unload their hazardous waste. And so this is for residential waste only. The estimated cost is $13,183.92. It's budgeted at $16,000 in the solid waste disposal division. And the actual cost will fluctuate according to the amount of, the quantity of waste that we receive. So I would request authorization to sign this agreement with Veolia for the 2020 Household Hazardous Waste event. And I guess all I would add is maximum participation. In 2017, we saw 161 vehicles in 4 hours. The average is running about 103 vehicles per year.
All right, thank you. And let's see, Councilman Lallam, you have some questions?
Yeah, Mike, what would be classified as a household hazardous waste?
Some of the items that'll be collected would be like oil-based paints, aerosols or flammable solvents, lithium NiCad batteries, any mercury or mercury-containing devices like a thermostat or something, capacitors that have PCBs in them, and fluorescent light bulbs have a little bit of mercury in them, so that we will take those from the residents. And pretty much just about anything that's labeled flammable, toxic, or corrosive that's in your garage or your basement that you want to get rid of. No waste ammunition and no electronic waste, because we collect electronic waste for free all year long out at the landfill from our residents.
Okay,
No oil either, correct?
No, that's could be handled locally.
Okay.
Councilman
Mike,
Vilhauer?
because I've asked this personally myself, oil-based paints you do accept, latex paints you do not, unless they're dried up.
Right, and latex paints are not hazardous, so we recommend the public use as much as they can and then open it up and mix it with kitty litter or something and let it turn to a solid. And then latex paint, once it's a solid, it should just go right in your household garbage.
Okay. How many pounds or gallons or however you measure it do you typically pick up? You gave us a number of vehicles. What does that equate to as far as poundage or?
Well, there's so many different items, I couldn't really give you an answer to that question.
Okay.
Because it's a multitude of different things. It's a couple-page long list. And some things are small, some things are larger volume, but the whole thing is they've got to be segregated so they can't chemically react with each other. So it's all about the handling and proper disposal and recycling of this hazardous waste, because residential hazardous waste is exempt from regulation because it's residential, but it still has a negative effect on the quality of the water that goes to the wastewater facility. So.
Councilman Bueller? Bueller.
Mike, question for you. Shotgun shells, what do you do with them? What should you do with them?
Shoot them.
Well, the ones with a dent in them that are still, that didn't open up. No, I don't, old shotguns, shells.
And they'll come and pick them up.
Yeah, we haven't taken those. I don't know what to do with them. I usually use bind up, but I'll have to just take you hunting more often.
No, seriously.
Councilman
If you
Nancy?
call the police department, they will come and pick those up for you and get rid of them.
Thank you.
No, unspent,
Unspent shells.
unspent shells, right. So if you find a box of ammo in the basement, you say, they'll come and get it for you.
So Mike, if we go hunting, we're spending shells. Is that what we're doing? Okay.
Councilman Y, did you? Okay, Councilman Lallam?
Mike, how do we get that out to the general public so they know that we're going to be doing that?
We use pretty much everything available to us, so we usually do a utility bill stuffer the month before. It'll be on the website, it'll be in the local media, and then, and I can tell you, it's such a popular, people really appreciate it. It's been going on, like I said, for 17 years. And so we've always tried to keep it the last Saturday in April, and people know that's what it's going to be. One year last year, I think we lost that date for the only time in 17 years. And but we'll use all the resources we have to get that word out.
Yeah, I just wanted people to utilize it if we're going to do that. I mean, it's better than it getting disposed into the regular sanitary, into the garbage, stuff
Yeah,
like that,
yep.
stuck in there, so.
Nope, and I think, like I said, it's been very popular. People wait for it, and a lot of people know if they, oh, you know what, that Saturday I'm going to be in Georgia, give it to your neighbor and let them take it, because quite a few people team together on that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilman Y?
I do have a question now. This is for residential only. For businesses and things like that, what are their options then?
They would call like companies like Clean Harbors or Veolia and just schedule with them to come by and pick up their waste. Commercial, industrial, or institutional hazardous waste is regulated by law if you generate more than I think it's 220 pounds in some period of time, I don't remember anymore, about 60 days, the state will regulate you. So when we get those calls, we refer them to Veolia or their competition and let them pick who they want to use.
I see you've got 13 different categories. If you find something that doesn't fit into one of these categories, what
Those are
happens
more
to it?
general categories in the past. They were more specific. So it includes a lot of stuff that they didn't put in this year's agreement, but it will still be picking it up. Yeah, you're right. That is a shorter
Okay,
list.
And then who's counting all those units?
Well, we have the landfill supervisor and one landfill employee will be there. Veolia comes in with a crew, and then they set up their site, and then they have a safety meeting with our staff, and then they do all the labeling and counting, and our staff is present at the same time while that's being done.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. And Councilman Hoyer?
So in order for this stuff to, and just speaking as somebody who has had a hazmat certification, they'll have to package it and you'll have packing slips that are specific. They can't take it anywhere without that packing slip. And it literally will list it line by line, what it is, what it's packed in, what class of waste it is, and then how much the quantity is. Because they're tracking if it's limited quantity or above that threshold to where they need to declare it as something else, because they also need to label their trucks accurately. So it's pretty hard to fudge the system on that one.
It's one of the things that Veolia does for us is segregate, classify, label. It's all very regulated. They do a great job of it, so.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
What's that?
Leftover uranium. Great.
Oh, yeah. U-239, 235. No uranium.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to recommend approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mike. Yes, Councilman Billhauer.
Mike, as long as you're there, I know you got some good news last week, or we got some good news last week about our new admin building out there. Do you want to give us a kind of an update on that and the project in general?
Yep.
If you wouldn't mind, Mike?
Sure. We were approved for a $5 million SRF funding at 2.25% for 20 years, and that would be for the construction of the new administration building at the wastewater treatment facility. And that design is complete, and bottom line is what we're doing is replacing 2 buildings. The existing operations shop, which is now dilapidated, we did a structural evaluation of that. That will be demolished. And then our existing administration building is missing a lot of the functionality that we need in an administration building, will become cold storage, and this new building will replace those 2 buildings on site. And so we're ready to be bidding here pretty soon, in the near future.
And by the last Saturday in April, those 2 buildings will, well, one's going to be there longer, but one's going to be torn down, but it'll still be standing. So
Yeah.
as people bring their hazardous waste, they can view the lovely buildings that will be
Yeah, when we get to
replaced.
get the project schedule, we got to keep that shop for a little while because that's been very useful. We have a one-way loop around that thing to get people in and out. So
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mike. Item 5 is council consideration of the negotiated fuel pricing from Sioux Valley Co-op for the 2020 Petroleum Products and Street Maintenance Materials Project 1913. Got a motion by Y and a second by Lallam. True? Okay. Heath, want to tell us about this one?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As council likely recalls, back here in late November, we entered into, or advertised for bids, I should say, for the petroleum products and street maintenance materials for 2020. In the receiving of those bids, we did not receive one for fuel, however. So we contacted those locally that we knew had interest in the past in providing fuel to the city. For the street maintenance operations, solid waste, wastewater. Several of the public works divisions utilize this fuel bid, several of the city departments for that matter. And we found out that just errantly they overlooked the bid advertisement, forgot to bid in time. We conferred with our city attorney, Matt, here, and state statute does allow us, since we did advertise for bidding, for bids, it does allow us to enter into negotiations for pricing to receive that item that we did not receive any bids on. And that's exactly what we did. We went into negotiations with Sioux Valley Co-op, and as you can see on the request for council action, they agreed to offer us a flat, across the board, 6 cents per gallon reduction in the price on the pump rate for all the different fuel types that we requested pricing for. And we also received pricing from the Cowboy General stores. Their offer was not as much of a reduction, and therefore staff is recommending that we go with the negotiated pricing from Sioux Valley Co-op. And we'd be happy to help answer your questions.
Great, thank you. I want to point a couple things out. First of all, in all the years that I can remember, we've only gotten 1 quote. And this year we got 2. So even though neither of them came at the time we were requesting bids, I think that's progress. And I'm excited about that. And also we are, this is a different bid than we show in our packet, I think.
Is that mine or?
Yeah, this one doesn't show the E30. But we did bid out requested bids for E30, and the one in the packet does show E30.
Yeah, that's
And there it is. Okay. And I'm happy that we're doing that. I think it's right for us to use E30 fuel. It's the ethanol that's blended with the gasoline is made right here in Watertown, and it's our local farmers that bring the corn that is transformed into ethanol. And so when we buy ethanol blended fuel, we are supporting our local economy. We save money, it's better for the environment, and we're supporting our local community. So this is good. It's the right thing to do, and I'm really happy about that. Anybody have any comments or questions? Councilman Y?
Heath, you mentioned several departments. That includes,
Has their own card that can be swiped at those pumps at Sioux Valley Co-op. Now, had we entered into a contract with another provider, we would have had to switch the card program out to their system, but this is the same provider as last year, so we'll continue the same card program that we have in each of the vehicles citywide.
The police department's been using E30 for 3 years. I know the street department's been using E30. Lots of folks have been using the ethanol blends and wastewater, solid waste. I think a lot of them have been. We just haven't bid it out formally in the past, but that's a good thing. Yes, did you have a question, Councilman Wheelhauer?
Said what I was going to say,
Oh, yes.
that we've been using it.
We've been using it, and the Glacial Lakes Energy has been doing trials, and we participated in some of those trials, and they've been, including me, I was worried about that, but seeing people who are very knowledgeable about engines and experts, really, about performance engines, it really doesn't gum up your engine. It's a good thing to do, and I actually feel like my car has a little bit more get up and go. So it is a higher octane than we get with the gasoline, so,
I would second all your comments, Mayor.
yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Lallam?
Heath, did, when Cowboy came back with theirs, did they have the other bid? Because we had talked about this last time. We just said there was a discount, correct? Did they have the exact amount that they had discounted from?
Yeah.
So if I understand your question correctly, they didn't provide as much of a discount per gallon, but they also, and I thank you for asking that, but they also did not provide a reduction in price for several of our other fuel types that we also wanted to receive.
But we talked about last time that we went to Sioux Valley and asked them, they said they would basically continue. I was just wondering if they had researched that, or if you're aware of that even.
No, I guess I'm not familiar or know the answer to that. I don't know if Colin does. He helped work on this.
Just wondering if they knew what the other company had came in at last time.
Yeah, that is a good question. I don't know if they knew that or not, Colin.
They did not. When I talked to Cowboy Liquors, you know,
They're
it's
a
on my
liquor store too,
mind.
yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. The Cowboy stores, they were worried about them submitting 6 cents because they couldn't match that.
Okay.
But at the time, I was getting quotes. I couldn't tell them that we already had a quote for 6 cents.
Sure, yeah.
So talking to them, I said, we are requesting other ones, but at that time, they didn't know that we had the other one.
Okay.
So
They
they had
did. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, Mayor.
That's all right.
They had the information from last year's bid, is what you're saying, the 6 cents reduction that
Correct.
they also happen to offer for this year.
Right, that's what I was going to say. It's a public record what they bid last year, which was a 6 cent
Correct.
reduction.
And I will note too, the Cowboy stores, they don't offer a lot of the fuels that we have listed here, all of them anyways. And some are only at certain stores throughout throughout town. So he did have concerns about that too. So in the future, that would be something that, if they do end up getting a quote and stuff, we would have to work through those details.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 6 is old business. Is there any old business? Councilman Vilhauer?
Well, I'm not sure if it's old or new or ongoing, but I know we've had a couple significant snowfalls since we met last time. Any comments that we're receiving that anybody can share as far as snow removal here around town, as far as what kind of feedback we're getting?
Heath, would you like to share?
I do have one concern that was raised and brought to my attention on whether the Street Division of Public Works had adequate amount of salt on hand currently. And I did confirm today with the Street Superintendent, Rob Bainan, that they in fact do have an adequate amount of salt sand mixed. They do also have additional salt and sand being delivered. And that's kind of a partnering activity that they do with the county every year, and they share that combined salt sand pile once it's blended. And but there is some on hand. We have not ran out of that material. It is still on hand at the Street Division, and they are using it as they have in the past on the targeted areas after the snow cleanup.
Thank you, Heath, for pointing that out. Councilman Bueller?
I have had a couple of concerns about the piles, the snow piles on the corners, the intersections getting a little bit tall and in the site triangle. And I kind of, since I've heard that, I've looked myself and I do see that You know, the smaller vehicles, the lower profile vehicles, I think they probably struggle to
Right.
see over that. So that's something we might want to take a look at.
Councilman Lallam?
To Bruce's point, they were out with loaders today, knocking down corners and stuff. But I did see a couple people made some comments about them going downtown the last snow event on Saturday versus waiting until Monday to do it. And so overall, pretty good for the amount of snow that we've gotten.
Right.
On us pretty quickly.
I would agree. I had some comments about people wondering why we weren't plowing the snow routes and the emergency routes, particularly to the hospital, until the snow was over, and that is not the case at all. I confirmed with the street superintendent that during the storm event, they plowed the emergency routes 4 different times. They plowed every highway 5 times during the event while it was still snowing. And I don't know that people realize it's the dozen guys on the crew plus our contractors that we hire out that are removing snow on hundreds of miles of roads. And they were up at 4 in the morning, and they're doing it while you're sleeping. 17.5 inches of snow that fell over the course of several days with tremendous winds. You know, it just blows back in, and it keeps snowing, and it may look like they haven't plowed, where in fact they have. And I think our street department does an excellent job of snow removal. And so if you're thinking that they're not plowing during the storm event, you probably just didn't see them when they went by, and they'll be by again and again and again. They do spend the most time on the emergency routes, and they'll plow those over and over during an event. But we try to only do the removals once on the streets and avenues in the neighborhoods, once during an event, because if we do it multiple times with a cost of $40,000 per swipe, that adds up really fast. And of course, it varies depending on how much snow fell and how much wind there was. But it's expensive. Each time they come by to remove the snow in a neighborhood, it costs a lot of money. So that's why they only do it, they wait until the snow stops falling before they do the local streets. Councilman Hoyer?
I just had some folks that were interested in the city's policy with vehicles that are parked on the street during snow events. And when it comes to plowing, is it a situation where we tag, do we tow, or just have the plow go around the vehicle?
Well, they do, the police department goes out ahead of the plows and they look at the license number and try to contact the people before they plow and to get them to move, but that they're not always successful. And they do plow around if the vehicle hasn't been moved, and then they'll come by and ticket those who didn't get their vehicle moved. And they have a certain amount of time before they're actually pulled out of the way once they're plowed around. But they will, if they have enough advance notice and people are on the street, they do what they can. But I know the police are out trying to get as much of that out of, as many vehicles as possible out of the way as they can. Councilwoman Manti?
Well, I think that's where the public comes in helping us get this done too, is to be mindful of that and get your cars off the street and understand that the plows can't do the job they need to if they're doing this down the smaller narrow roads with all the cars. So, do your best as the public to help the plows do their best is kind of what I would say.
Right, thank you.
Mayor,
Mayor? Yes.
just a fun fact, I guess. Last winter, the police department issued over 1,000 snow-related parking tickets.
Thank you for pointing that out, because I did have a citizen ask me why we weren't enforcing that. We are enforcing it if we gave out 1,000 tickets.
How many?
Do you know how many were towed?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, probably most come in and make it right.
Troy said that it's 24 hours after a snow event to move their vehicle before they get towed.
Okay, so you get a ticket, you've got 24 hours to move it before it's towed. Yep. Councilman Y?
Once they do move those vehicles, whether they're towed or the owner moves them, does the city come back by and replow that area? I know on an emergency snow route, they plowed around a vehicle, and that was the 17.5 inches, and that snow is kind of still there, and messes up the road, I guess.
It really depends on the timing. And so if the process goes, the snow event happens, there was a car in the way, it's a local street, it's not a snow route, and they plowed around the car. Then the car was moved and now there's a big pile of snow. Assuming it doesn't snow again, during the week, during their regular hours, the street department's going to come by and pick up those. But often we'll see storms in rapid succession where they don't get back. And so it's really hard to predict when it's going to come and when they'll get that done. Every storm's different. Anyone else? Councilman Billhauer?
I just pose a question. I've gotten very little, a couple critical comments, which you're always going to get that, but by and large, I've gotten very little feedback, so I'll take that as good news by and large. And personally, I'm very complimentary of the job that Rob and his crew is doing.
Right. It was extraordinarily slippery with the rain falling on snow and then freezing. The streets weren't slippery because of the incompetence of the street department. The streets were slippery because of the weather conditions. And so let's give our guys some credit here. They do a good job. Any other old business? Is there any new business? None. Okay, we do have a reason to go into executive session this evening in order to discuss and consult with legal counsel on contractual, pending litigation, and personnel matters. And so we'll do that, but we do not expect to take any action when we come out. So have a motion by Lallam and a second by Manti. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thank you.